What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today we're going to be continuing our series on which stats or which ratings matter for specific positions in Madden. And today we're going to be covering wide receivers because we covered tight ends in the last video, and it is a good branch off to talk about wide receivers because a lot of the same things apply between receivers and tight ends. There are obviously variances and differences between the two positions, but a lot of the things remain the same. So first things first, we're obviously going to talk about the physical attributes regarding a wide receiver, and this is one of the positions that I want to kind of point out that change of direction is the most important to. That's kind of the first thing to focus on with wide receivers that I think a lot of people maybe neglect. Now, what I will say is that you can get away with a wide receiver that doesn't have good change of direction, but the thing that will hurt is their ability after they catch the ball to make any type of big moves or change directions and cut up field and that type of thing. And it is also going to limit their ability to be a good kick and punt returner. If you have a wide receiver that you want to be specifically a good kick and punt returner, you need to have a high change of direction and high agility for them to be able to change directions without losing speed and easily change directions to be able to make their cuts and whatnot and actually get effective kick and punt returns. So from the wide receiver spot, I highly recommend that you guys look out for high change of direction and high agility ratings, because those can be really effective to a player cutting in and out of their routes and making moves after they've received the ball, and essentially creates more space between them and the players that are trying to defend them or tackle them. And that is going to be the key difference between wide receivers and tight ends for us, is that wide receiver stats are more focused around generating space between the players that they're going up against, and that compared to tight ends, where tight ends are more about catching with players in their area and trying to make plays on them. Now, don't get me wrong, some of those stats for tight ends that matter tremendously will still matter for a good wide receiver. If you want a player that's going to go up and get that jump ball or catch the ball with defenders draped on them, you're going to want those high catch in traffic and high spec catch ratings. But what I want to say is that especially for user games, their catch in traffic and their spec catch and those types of stats don't matter as much as their ability to generate space between them and the players that are trying to guard them. I said that a little bit earlier, and I want to emphasize that fact that those are the ratings that you're going to want to be focusing on with a receiver in Madden 21 and any Madden for that matter, because speed and their ability to generate space is going to be what generates the most catches, because when a player is open, when they don't have players on them, it is much easier to generate a catch than even a player with a good catch in traffic or good spec catch would with players near them. And so with that being said, you're looking for a minimum of 90 speed, 90 acceleration, and 90 agility and change of direction in Madden. You want to have at the base those ratings, because that is going to be kind of the baseline for a player that's going to be able to have the speed to outrun defenders and the agility and change of direction to be able to make them miss and be able to generate space between those players. Now, obviously, looking at a guy like Calvin Ridley, he's got 94 speed, 93 acceleration, 95 agility, and 92 change of direction. Those ratings themselves are very good compared to defensive backs. And so what I want you guys to do when you're thinking about your wide receivers ratings and stats, I want you to think about the stats of the players that are generally going to be defending them. So when you think about a lot of the top corners and even safeties in the NFL, you're looking at players that have 89, maybe 90 speed at best. There are some defensive backs that have better speed than that, but generally speaking, you're looking to beat 90 speed. So anything above that, especially once you hit the 93, 94 range, is really good and really effective at creating space in and of itself. So you don't even need to have the good route runnings and things like that and good release to be able to create space, if you at least have those athletic traits that allow you to create that space itself. Now, the next most important rating Outside of those athletic attributes is going to be your release rating. The release rating is tremendously important for wide receivers, and the reason behind that is you can have a player that has tremendous speed and tremendous athleticism and can generate that space, but if they can't get off the line of scrimmage and they can't get past the guy that is trying to stuff them at the line of scrimmage or chuck them, then that's going to present a problem with them ever being able to create space, because it's going to delay their route, it's going to delay your timing on offense, and it's going to prevent them from really generating that space that you need them to get that catch. And so the release rating is very, very important, and if you want to get high upgrades to the release rating, you're going to want to focus on the physical receiver archetype. Now, as you guys can see, Calvin Ridley is a fantastic deep threat receiver and a fantastic route runner as well as slot, but you can see that his release rating is kind of lacking in comparison to some of those other attributes. And part of the reason for that is probably because of the fact that he hasn't been upgraded as a physical wide receiver. You'll get a lot of good upgrades to the release rating by doing the physical route, the physical archetype. And so release is tremendously important, and I want you guys to remember that release is something that you need to focus on as a wide receiver, because like I said, generating space for your wide receivers is the most important thing to do as a wide receiver, because if you're generating space, you're getting open and you're making easy catches. That is the best way for a wide receiver to be successful in Madden. Now, talking along those same lines, we want to talk about their route running attributes. The short route running, medium route running, and deep route running are all tremendously useful in terms of generating space. The higher that these stats are, the more a wide receiver will be able to generate space. So, first and foremost, you're obviously going to be looking for the athletic attributes in a wide receiver. Secondly, you're going to be looking for their release rating. And then thirdly, you want to be looking for their route running stats. Those are the most important stats in a wide receiver. You can have a receiver that has low catching. As long as they get open, they will still be able to catch the ball, especially if you're doing possession catches and things of that nature. And so catch in traffic, and spec catch actually take a back seat for wide receivers compared to other positions, because of the fact that generating space between them and the players that are trying to defend them is the most important thing that you can do as a wide receiver. I know I've said it multiple times already, but I want to make it clear that what you are trying to do with your wide receivers is find players and build players that are going to create space between them and the players that are guarding them. And likewise, their athleticism, their release, and then their route running are their most important stats. You can have a guy with low catching ratings still get a ton of catches and a ton of yards. They may not make those crazy catches down the sidelines in traffic, in double coverage or anything like that, but the number of times that that's actually going to be useful to you in comparison to a receiver that just gets open all the time is very minimal. You obviously want to have a player that gets open all the time, because that will generate more receptions, more yardage for you. Now, on top of that, a couple of things that I want to talk about is their jumping rating and their height and weight rating. So as I alluded to with the tight ends, and if you guys want to, I'm going to be uploading my latest franchise gameplay after this. I want you guys to go take a look at some of the receptions that my tight ends made in that most recent game, and I showed you guys in the tight ends video talking about their stats that they don't have good catching ratings, they don't have good catch in traffic, good spec catch, or anything of that nature, and they don't even have good jumping, but for whatever reason they're able to still go up and get the ball over top of shorter defenders. Well, what's happening there, at least I believe, and like I've said in previous videos, I don't have the facts yet to back this up, the height and weight of a receiver matters tremendously in their ability to go up and get a ball over a defender. So you want to get those receivers that are taller players, and you want to get players that have that jumping rating to be able to go up over defenders. Now, Calvin Ridley doesn't have fantastic jumping, but he will still go up and get balls over defenders that are shorter than him. 85 is sufficient, but really, if you want a player that's really going to be able to jump up high and get the ball, you're looking at 90 jumping or better, like with the other physical attributes. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the other ratings that are on here on the secondary attributes, but talking about the core attributes, we talked about what was important, the physical attributes, the route running, the release, and some of the less important attributes, which are the catching ones. The catching ones, like with the tight ends and pass blocking, are a little bit of a fool's gold type of rating, in my opinion, for wide receivers, because if you're doing it right, your receiver should be open, and their catching stat will almost never really come into account, or will never factor in to your ability to move the ball. You know, if you're doing it right with your receivers, they'll be open and they'll catch it open, and they're never going to have to worry about their catching stats coming into play against the players that they're going up against. So with that being said, let's take a look at their secondary attributes and see if we can deem any of these to be important. Now, the ball carrier vision, carrying, trucking, break tackle, stiff arm, juke move, spin move, most of these things I would deem to be not important with receivers. So very rarely, in my personal opinion, are you going to get a guy that's going to be able to make a crazy move and get you extra yardage on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, it helps to have a guy that can have a good juke move or a good spin move to pick up an extra couple of yards, but for the most part, their ball carrier vision, that's going to be negated because you're going to be user controlling this player when he actually has the ball in his hands. So that is kind of a moot point, a rating that again could artificially inflate a player's overall. And then you have, the trucking, the break tackle, the stiff arm. Those things could help you, as well as the juke move and the spin move, but it's not something particular that you guys should be focusing on with a wide receiver unless you're looking for a good return man or a player that's good in the open field at making a move. If for whatever offense you're running, you do get guys open enough that you want to be able to make moves with them and get extra yardage. The carrying rating is something that I would focus on tremendously. If you want a guy that's going to hang on to the ball and not fumble it all the time whenever they're catching it, get guys that have a bit better of a carrying rating, because like I said in the tight ends video, you're comparing 70 carrying for a wide receiver to probably 90 carrying for a halfback. And so, when these guys get hit and they get hit big, they're going to fumble the ball, especially with a 70 carrying rating, because that's far lower than most of the hit powers that the linebackers and safeties and even corners that they're going to be going up against will have. And so that could create some problems for you. Now, I don't know why they have the pass blocking stats on here. I don't know why they have pass block on here at all, because wide receivers are pretty much never pass blocking for you. So again, don't pay attention to that. I would pay attention a little bit to the player's run block and impact block ratings, because those stats can help you a little bit in terms of actually running the football. I like to have wide receivers that have a little bit of an ability to block for me and can hang on to those defensive backs and keep them out of my hair while I'm trying to do a good running play, because that can be very effective for you. Juju Smith-Schuster is a good example of that in my franchise. He's pretty good at getting on blocks and holding them, and that can be really useful for you breaking off long runs and things like that if you have a wide receiver that's able to hold their block for a bit longer. Now, the last few stats here, kick return, that stat can be important if you're trying to have a guy be a good returner, but it's not something that you should focus on. Calvin Ridley in himself would be a fantastic kick returner based on his speed, acceleration, agility, and change of direction alone. On top of that, he has a good juke move and a good spin move, so that kick return rating is almost like, that 68 really doesn't matter to me because I'm going to be able to do what I want with him anyway. But there is some evidence to suggest that a higher kick return rating means better broken tackles and things like that whenever you are kick returning, and so that is something to maybe pay a little bit of attention to. Likewise, if you want a player to be a good kick returner, then you might want to look a little bit more at that break tackle rating and things like that, because that helps them break some of those arm tackles and get a couple extra yards on a kick return, or maybe break one for you. And then we're going to take a look at the last few stats here, which are injury, stamina, and toughness. These ones are actually kind of a little bit important. Now, injury is always important. You want to keep your guys on the field, but your wide receivers are going to be getting tired often because of how much they're running down the field. Now, often is, I use that word loosely, but on top of that, they're going to be getting hit a lot because they're catching the football, and so their injury status matters quite a bit, because like a running back, they're going to get contacted a lot by big hits and things like that, and so their injury status or injury rating or stat matters quite a bit. I recommend that you guys at least pay attention to what your player's injury rating is, because you don't want to go out and trade for a guy that has a horrible injury rating and then him just get hit, and when you're trying to throw him the ball and he's just constantly off the field for you, because that's not going to help you out. The toughness rating plays into how quickly they will come back from an injury, so that's not really that important. But the stamina rating is a rating that is hugely important to wide receivers, because wide receivers are running more than anybody else on the field, aside from maybe the cornerbacks that are covering them, and therefore they will get tired quickly if they have a poor stamina rating. So when you guys look at a guy like Calvin Ridley, he has 84 stamina, so there is a very high potential that after one or two deep routes or something like that he's going to be tired and have to sub off the field, or he's going to be running his routes poorly or slowly because of the fact that he's winded. And so that is a stat that you should absolutely focus on with your wide receivers, because a lot of the good wide receivers in this game, end up having pretty low stamina. So if we go out and look at some of the other wide receivers and their staminas, there are some top wide receivers that are a little bit lacking in that stamina category. So you guys look at Calvin Ridley, but you want to have a guy like a Julio Jones that has that 98 stamina. If we sort by league, for example, and look at the top guys like Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill even, they all have good stamina ratings until you get down to guys like Stephon Diggs that have a little bit lower of a stamina rating, and that could hurt you in the long run because your player is getting tired quicker, because these guys, like I said, are running around the most out of anybody and getting tired probably quicker than anybody. So you're looking for 90 plus stamina on your receivers, and that is actually pretty important for you guys. So with that being said, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Apologize, I didn't mean to do that. That's all I have for you guys in terms of wide receiver ratings. That's what's important. Accidentally closed out of that one, but with that being said, hopefully this information is helpful to you guys. Hopefully you guys continue to enjoy the series. Make sure you guys leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Comment down below with what you guys would like to see next, and I'm going to continue this series, continue the play calling series, and like I said, later today, if I have it edited in time, I should have an episode of the Steelers franchise up for you guys as well. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys have a good night.